we're finding value in ourselves only based on what we're doing.
Mm,
It's not about it's not about just being, and you fall into that trap of having to do more, having to please more people, having to say yes to more things. I can't possibly say no. And what ends up happening is because of that, no matter what, you end up shortchanging yourself and probably shortchanging other things, including some of the very things that you're trying to do, you know?
yes.
And that's the running from one thing to the next. You're always late for the meetings. You're always, oh, the next thing, oh, the next thing, oh, the next thing. And you never really have time to just be and to reflect and
Yeah.
to actually think. You don't have any white space in your life.
Welcome to Sheila's Take, your go-to podcast for thoughtful insights on love, faith, health, fitness, relationships, and navigating today's challenges through a spiritual perspective. Join me, Sheila Dunbar, as we explore various aspects of life with a mindful and godly approach. Tune in for engaging discussions on all things meaningful and transformative. Welcome back to Sheila's Take. Today, I have an inspiring guest, Scott Maderer. Scott, together with his wife, Carrie, launched Inspired Stewardship in 2017 to support Christian men and couples in living out their calling authentically. As certified human behavior consultants and members of the John Maxwell team, Scott and Carrie work to align how you use your time, talent, and treasures, helping you understand yourself and others to build a fulfilling life and the kingdom. With nearly 30 years in education, they founded Inspired Stewardship and now offer full-time coaching workshops and speaking engagements. Scott is also the author of Inspired Living. So let's dive into Scott's journey and insights. Welcome, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Good, nice, good. Well, let me ask you a question. Can you share with us the story behind how you and your wife, Carrie, I wish we could have had her on today, decided to start Stewardship?
Sure. So honestly, it was a bit of a journey. So I was actually, as I mentioned, I was in education for years. I was a school
Mm-hmm.
teacher for 16 years, and then I actually worked in the corporate world
Okay.
uh, in education, but it was in the testing industry. So my students
Okay.
said I joined the dark side. I went from teaching to testing, and so I did that for 11 years, led a
Mm-hmm.
team, and in all of that work, all the way back from the beginning, I've always had a drive to help people. I actually went to school to go into medical research, maybe even become a doctor, but
Mm-hmm.
pivoted from that to become the school teacher. And there's always been this drive, this calling, this feeling of, I always wanted to help people in different ways. And in the meantime, my wife and I actually went through our own financial troubles, our own kind of journey where we got out of debt. We
Mm-hmm.
nearly divorced. I was actually suicidal because of
Wow.
finances,
Wow.
and we
Wow.
kind of came together and we fought through that and saved our marriage, kind of turned
Mhm.
our life around financially. And when you do something big like that, people notice and then they
Yeah.
start asking for help because it's like, well, how did you do that? And so that's literally the coaching was kind of born out of mirroring two things. One was this drive to help people. I always had a coaching mindset when I was teaching kids. I did it more as a coach than an
Mhm.
instructor. When I was leading a team, I did it more as a coach than a
I can see
boss,
that. Because I
Yeah.
see the energy. I see the energy.
And that was always how I approached it. And so that kind of naturally then transitioned into, hey, people are asking for help. We can help them. And so
Mhm.
we started it back in 2011, kind of part time. And then eventually that grew into the full time business. And now I work from home and I help people all over the world. And that's kind of, that my commute's 30 seconds. Yay. you know, which it used to be an hour. So 30 seconds is much
So
better.
it's a lot better, a lot better. You mentioned authentically living. What does authentically living your calling mean to you, and why is it so important in today's world?
So I think a lot of us uh, are living a life where we're doing kind of the shoulds, right? I should
Mhm.
do this. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do that.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah, everyone expects me. We
Yeah.
put that's the language we use, and we use language like "I'm busy" as if that's a good thing. That's a badge of honor. And everyone's sort of on this stressed out, edge of burnout kind of life where we're filling our calendars, we're overspending, we're overreaching, we're
Hmm.
overdoing, and we aren't actually stopping and stepping back and going, wait a minute, what am I actually supposed to do with my life?
Right.
What is the thing that authentically brings me? And I always talk about it in terms of energy. When you look at your calendar, there are things that you do that give you energy, and then there are things you do that take energy. And then there are things you do that drain energy, which is even worse, right? And yes, that sometimes includes some of the people you meet. But we won't go
Yeah.
there, but we
Yeah.
all know it. And those sorts of things. And what we don't ever really do is examine that and go, wait a minute, how can I get more of the things that are authentically in alignment with what gives me energy and
Hmm.
brings me that feedback, because I'll tell you, I get off the call with a client, and if it's a good fit and the client is really a good fit for me and the kind of person I love working with and they love working with me, I get off the call and it's like, cool.
Yeah.
Let's do 10 more of those,
Right. 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 Right.
as opposed to there's other tasks that it's like, if I could avoid doing that, I would.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. This isn't to say that every single thing and every minute of the day should only be the things that give you energy and bring you joy. We still have
You
to do
know.
the laundry. We still have to wash the dishes.
Yeah.
But the more you can bring your life in alignment with those things, the more authentically I feel you're living, and that's what I call living an inspired life. It's really about living a life that's proactive as opposed to a life that's reactive.
Okay. Okay. And a lot of us, I think, a lot of us live reactive lives because we're
Most of us
always,
do.
yeah, yeah, we're reacting to everything, as opposed to pairing and being prepared for it. We're always on the okay, what's what's going to happen now? I definitely understand that. Now, you are a human behavior consultant. How do you help individuals understand themselves and others better? Like, can
Mhm.
you highlight some
Sure.
techniques or principles you may use?
So I use the DISC model. So the DISC is a behavioral communication model. There's a million of them out there. It's not that DISC
Hmm.
is right and all the rest of them are wrong or it's better. I'll tell you the truth. DISC is why I use it is it's simple enough that I can explain it and understand it pretty quickly.
Okay.
And so it's something I can carry around in my head and I can use in day-to-day living, which is why I use it. And so basically all it is it says that when you think about people, so I'll ask you, when you think about yourself, are you more task oriented or more people oriented? Now let me define that so that it doesn't
Yeah.
just, come across. By the way, one of these is not good, the other one's not bad. These are both,
Okay.
value neutral things.
Hmm.
They just are. When you go to bed at night and you're thinking about your day, are you kind of thinking to yourself, "Oh, it was a good day because I got this done, I got this done, I had this thing, I checked this off my to-do list." Or when you go to bed at night, is it more like, it was a good day today because I had a conversation with this person, I spent some time with that person, me and this other person got to work together on this?
Hmm.
Is it more task oriented or people
See,
oriented?
I think I'm more task oriented.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and again, not a good or bad, just left or right.
Hmm.
And some people, by the way, if you're playing along at home, some people will just say, "Oh no, I'm people oriented."
Yeah.
So that's kind of think of that as an x-axis, right?
Hmm.
Task on one side, people on the other. Now
Right.
we're going to go to another if then. Do you find yourself more outgoing or more reserved? Now again, let me define that. This does not mean introverted and extroverted. There is
Okay.
such a thing as an
Yeah.
outgoing introvert.
Hmm.
I am one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not that. Instead, think of it as like your kind of internal energy. So an outgoing person tends to approach everything with kind of a high energy outlook. They tend to be, let's go to the next thing. Let's get the next thing. They talk fast. They speak fast. They move their hands around. I'm doing it. All of that sort of stuff. A reserved person, on the other hand, is a little bit more calm. They're a little bit more collected. They're a little bit more deliberate. They take a little bit more time to think about things. They're going to talk a little softer. They're going to move a little slower. That's just kind of how they approach life. So for you, would you consider yourself more outgoing or more reserved?
More reserved.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
So reserved, task oriented people would be a C under the DIS, D, I, S, and C. D is dominant or
Mhm.
direct, or you could use those sorts of words. D's are task oriented and outgoing people. These are the go getter, get everything done, just give me the results,
Mhm.
lead, follow, get out of the way, type A kind of personality person.
Okay.
Go to the I. I's are people oriented and outgoing. So that's called inspirational people. They are a blast to be around. They are a
Okay.
lot of fun. They always want to
Mhm.
have fun. They always want to bring energy to things. They're the first ones to be like, oh, we need a pizza party, that kind of thing. That's
Okay.
how they live their life. An S is now we're going to go down to reserve. So I'm going to talk a little quieter so I don't scare any S's that are listening. And they're more people oriented. This is my wife, by the way. They're very interested in security and the status quo. They're supporters. They're the nicest people on the planet. Okay.
Mhm.
They will walk a million miles to help somebody else. And then the C, the last type, stands for cautious. The C types are the detail oriented people. They're the folks, they like a checklist. If I send them steps and they're numbered 1, 2, 3, they are going to do one before they do number two. Okay. By the way, even if I tell them, order doesn't matter, do these in whatever you want to order you want to do, doesn't matter. They're going to do one before they do two because they're numbered and we should do them in that order. It's just they tend to use structure and that kind of thing as
Mhm.
theirs. Now, here's the truth. Most of us are not purely any one of these. So
Mhm.
going back to you, now that you've heard these, does C kind of describe a lot about how you approach life?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. What would be the second one that describes you?
I'm more of like when I get out around people, I like to have fun. I bring that
Mhm,
energy, but it's not like I'm gonna do it on
mhm.
my own. I'll have to be in the mood. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. So there's two things that you actually just pointed out. One is we actually have kind of two different measures. We have
Mhm.
what's called our natural and we have what's called our environmental. So natural is if you leave me alone and just kind of stick me in a room by myself, what do I want to do? And environmental is if you put me in a group or in a work situation or out in the world, what am I more likely to do? Those don't necessarily always match.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, depending on what environment I put you in,
Exactly.
they could change, right?
Exactly.
So there
Exactly.
is actually kind of your natural wiring versus how do you behave in a particular environment is one part of it. And the other is the truth is most of us aren't purely one of these. We're a blend of at least two, sometimes
Mhm.
even three of these. Okay. So we have different, it's like we're mainly a C, but we're also an I and maybe even an S or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like
Yes.
I'm a DC, I'm a high D, I'm also a high C. So you notice both of those are task oriented, but one of
Mhm.
them is reserved and the other's outgoing.
Outgoing. Yes.
So I do have that ability to shift between, hey, let's go, we're out there. And then if you leave me alone and put me in a room by myself, it's kind of like, okay,
Okay.
now I'm more reserved. So I do shift between those. But guess what? When it comes to the people side of it, I have to
Mhm.
work really hard to engage with the people side of it. So as an example, when I was a manager of people, by the way, it's not that I don't like people. It's not that I
Mhm.
don't care about people. It's not that I don't want people to be happy. I love people,
Right.
but it's just not naturally how I approach things. So as an example, what I did is I literally turned checking on my people when I was leading a team into a checklist item. I had an event scheduled on Wednesday afternoon that literally would pop up on my calendar and that said, left the desk and leave the desk and go visit these people. And there was a list of 3 names. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do this. And I would go down the hall and I would visit the first person, and talk to him for a little while. How's your kids doing? How'd they
Mhm.
do on the soccer game last week? I learned to turn interacting with my people. By the way, the people that were listed there were the S's on my team
Ah.
because it was really important to them that I came and visited
Yeah.
with them and I checked in on them and I made sure they were okay. And I cared. And
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
just ask about work stuff. I asked about family and baseball
Right.
games
Right.
and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
By the way, notice I didn't put my eyes on there. You know why? They came and visited with me. you know,
'Cause they're more outgoing.
I didn't have to seek them out. They would come by the office.
Right. Right.
Hey, Scott, you got a minute? Yeah, come on in. I knew that. My D's, if I went and visited them, they're like, I'm working here. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
It was an
Yeah.
interruption to them. My
Yeah.
C's, same way. So I deliberately noticed how are certain people on my team wired, what gives them energy and joy, and then I turned it into a task because that's how
Mhm.
I learn how to do things. So I'm acknowledging me, how I'm wired, but I'm also acknowledging them and how they're wired and giving them what they need. And so that's kind of how we work through with communication and style to understand yourself, to understand others, so that you can begin to not just do what, because here's the big mistake. We all think, do unto others as I want to be done unto, right?
Right.
That's the golden rule.
Mhm.
That's actually terrible advice. Do unto others as they want to be done unto.
Right. Yeah.
Because if I treat
Mm.
everyone the way I want to be treated, there's people out there going, I don't want to be treated like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't enjoy,
Yeah.
if I treated my S's the way I want to be treated, they'd be in the cubicle going, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't like me.
Right.
I must have done something wrong. And
Right.
they didn't do anything wrong. It's just I would be treating them not in a way that
Mm,
gives them energy, but in
exactly.
a way that gives me energy.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Now you have been in the education field for what? Almost 30 years, right?
I 16 years as a teacher, 11 years in educational testing. And then if you want to count some of the coaching work and
Mhm.
other instruction I do, because I actually teach other folks how to become coaches and do other things like that, another what, 12 years or so. So yeah, over 30 years.
What so did you find it challenging from doing teaching to well doing education to what you're doing now? There was no you had no
Now,
challenges. There was nothing you had to
I mean,
overcome.
obviously there's challenges. Yeah.
Mhm.
Nobody, every transition, every change and everything has challenges.
Yeah.
But again, my approach, even as a teacher, was much more, I was a coach kind of teacher.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
didn't teach. So I didn't stand up at the front of the room and say, okay, everyone turn to chapter 3, do the questions at the end of the chapter. I wasn't that kind of teacher. For one thing, I was a science teacher, so it's a lot more, easy
Mhm.
to do
Yeah.
that. But I would engage with the students in terms of, thinking and asking them questions and, that kind of approach, which was much more of a coaching. I didn't realize it, but I was learning how to be a good coach even when I was a school teacher. Same thing for in leadership position. it- I was learning skills that I could translate over to coaching. Now, there's still things I had to learn and there's still
Mhm.
things I had to develop and I had to get better at certain things. And I had to, for one thing, I have to get better at asking questions
Right.
because
Right.
a lot of the power in coaching is about what questions you ask people. So that definitely is something I had to improve in, but it wasn't like I was coming from something that had none of that to something that was all of that. It was more
Mhm.
like, oh, I need to enhance this. I need to
Right.
refine this. I need to get better at it.
That makes a lot of sense. Your work emphasizes aligning time, talent, and treasures. What is like a practical example of how someone can begin this alignment? And let's say if I want to do it in my own life, how would I begin?
You want to pick time or money?
You know what? Let's do time.
Okay. So one of the quick activities you can do, and this is something literally everyone could do this. So take a sheet of paper and down the left-hand side of the sheet of paper, just write the increments of time in about 30-minute increments.
Mm-hmm.
So from whatever time you get up, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, write all the times in 30-minute increments down the left-hand side of the page
Mm-hmm.
till whatever time you typically go to bed. In other words, you have your day laid out in
Right.
30-minute increments. Now, all I want you to do, this, by the way, is an awareness piece. So the step we're doing right now is most of us are actually very unaware of how we spend our time. We look up at the end of the day and go,
Where did the time go? What did I do today?
I was busy all day and I feel like I got nothing done and I couldn't tell you what I did, kind of thing. So this
Yeah.
is a way to get aware of where you're actually spending your time. So then set an alarm on your watch or on your phone that's silent so it doesn't bug anyone around you, but it
Mhm.
just vibrates every 30 minutes. And when it vibrates, when it goes off every 30 minutes, just jot down next to the time on the sheet of paper, what did you do during that 30 minutes? You don't have to write every detail. I'm not
Mhm.
saying, write, I sent 13 emails. The first one was to this person. The second
Yeah.
one was
Yeah.
this. It's more like I spent most of that 30 minutes answering emails and I spent a little bit of time scrolling on Facebook.
Mhm.
That's enough information. You're just trying to capture, where did you spend the bulk of that 30 minutes? Do that all day long. Do that for a couple of days. Do that for a
Mhm.
week. Spend a good chunk of time doing this, and then go back to it and sit down and take a highlighter or a couple of colored markers or that kind of thing, and go through it and start to highlight what are the things you did that were productive? What are the things you did that were things that, you look at it and you go, hey, yeah, that was a good use of my time.
Mhm.
What were the things you did where you like, I can't believe I spent that long doing that, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Look at the things that gave you energy and mark those. Look at the things that drained your energy and mark those. You're trying to look for patterns. Where is your time going? And I will tell you,
Mm.
every single person I've had do this, first off, just the act of doing it begins to change how you spend your time.
Yeah.
Because just the fact that you're
Yeah.
like, oh, wait, that alarm's going to go off. Maybe I should stop scrolling Facebook for, you get a
Right,
little bit of
right,
that.
right.
So it automatically starts to change some of your behavior. And then secondly, it's an awareness tool. When you start looking at it, I will guarantee you 99% of you, if you've never done this before, you'll look back on it and there will be something on there that you will be like, I cannot believe I spent 3
30.
hours
Yeah, doing that.
doing that.
Yeah, yeah,
It did that
yeah,
just doesn't seem possible. There,
yeah.
by the way, I don't know what it'll be. It's different for different people, but there will be something that just jumps out at you as, wow, that's where a big chunk of my time is going. And you want to ask yourself, is the time going the places that are giving you value, that are moving you in a direction you
Yeah.
want to go, that are giving you energy, that are actually in alignment. As an example, if you say, one of the most important things to me is time spent with my family, and across 3 days, you spent 45 minutes with your family,
Mm.
something's wrong. Maybe
Yeah,
you aren't,
yeah.
and you're looking for that kind of thing, that is this really living out in alignment with my values? Then we can start talking about, now what do we do to fix that? What do we do to begin to change that? What do we say no to? What do we
Mhm.
say yes to? But until you're aware, wanting to fix it is just a dream. You've got to know what you're actually attacking and beginning to change before you can make any
You
change.
can very, very true, very true. For Christian men and couples who feel they
Mhm.
are struggling to live out their calling, what are some common obstacles they face, and how do you guide them with those challenges?
So basically, I think, and it's not just for Christian men and couples, but a lot of our folks that come to us
Mhm.
are of the faith. I have that background, so you've got to at least be comfortable with it. But what comes from it is, we have a tendency to fall into the success trap of basically other pleasing. And I think this is true for a
Yeah.
lot of people in the world today, where we're living our life to make everyone else happy. We're finding value in ourselves only based on what we're doing.
Mhm.
It's not about just being, and you fall into that trap of having to do more, having to please more people, having to say yes to more things. I can't possibly say no. And what ends up happening is, because of that, no matter what, you end up shortchanging yourself and probably shortchanging other things, including some of the very things that you're trying to do,
Yes.
and that's the running from one thing to the next. You're always late for the meetings. You're always, oh, the next thing, oh, the next thing, oh, the next thing. And you never really have time to just be, and to reflect and
Yeah.
to actually think. You don't have any white space in your life. If you feel that, that's the time area. The same thing happens in our money. Where will we be? It's constantly, all the money comes in, all the money comes out. Only the names are changed. I don't really know where it goes. I just know I haven't got any of it at the end of the month. And in fact, some months I've got more months than I've got money. It's
Yeah.
I haven't even got to the end of the month and I'm out of money. And now what am I going to do? Or I owe, it's off to work
Yeah.
I go, right? Any of
Mhm.
those sorts of feelings. And you'll notice, by the way, the underlying emotion there is actually the same. So it turns out that a lot of what we do in our time component is related to what we do in our money component. Because at the end of the day, I joke and tell people, I tell you I'm going to help you with your time or money. Real truth is, I'm only going to work in the talent area, because at the end of the day, how you handle your time and how you handle your money is less about time and money and more about how you handle yourself.
Mhm.
It's
Hmm.
a behavior. The bad news is, when you look in the mirror, you're seeing the problem.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
good news is when you look in the mirror, you're also seeing the solution. you know?
That's true. That's true. The problem
so,
and the solution.
so it's really about digging in and figuring out what are those success traps? What are those things that you're saying yes to that in reality you just need to cut out of your life or find another way to achieve so that you can begin to spend some time doing the things that really are giving you energy, that are the things you're called to do.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your book, Inspired Living, Assemble the Puzzle of Your Calling by Mastering Your Time, Your Talent, and Your Treasures.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I joke and say this book took me 35 years to write because it really is an assemblage of a lot of the tools and techniques that I've been learning over 30 plus years that I'm kind of trying to put together in a way that if you're feeling those struggles that we were just talking about, it
Mhm.
kind of gives you some activities, gives you some exercises, gives you some things that you can go through to reflect to help kind of getting you unstuck so that you can move in that direction of really doing what you're supposed to be doing. So it has a kind of a framework that I use that I walk people through to make it really simple so that you can kind of go through one step at a
Mhm.
time and begin to spend some time on that self-reflection, that self-development, and then begin to actually execute and do the things that get you out of your own way. So that basically if you say, "Oh, I really want to be doing this, but I don't have enough time," or "I
Mhm.
really want to be doing this, but I don't have enough money," it at least gets rid of those excuses. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So at least then you can admit to yourself, "Oh, well, okay, I got rid of those excuses. Now why am I not
Now
doing
what?
it?" You
Exactly.
know?
Exactly.
And then get you started doing it. So I basically have put together a bunch of exercises and tools. The exercise I shared earlier, the 15-minute
Mhm.
miracle, is an example of one of those, but there's a whole bunch of other ones as well that you can kind of dive into in each of those areas.
Okay. And where is your book available now? Where can you get it?
Everywhere that books are sold, it's available there. I also have a site I put together for your listeners that has the book listed linked there where they could go get it as well.
Okay.
So I have a resource page that I'll share with your listeners as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Now in your own journey, what has been the biggest lesson you've learned about stewardship and personal growth?
I think the biggest lesson, that's a great question. It basically boils down to the fact that when it comes to stewardship, we all kind of give lip service to it. This idea that it isn't mine. I'm here to manage it, that it's just passing through. And yet that's a really hard thing to live out in
Mhm.
reality.
Yeah.
To recognize that your worth isn't based on how busy you are, it isn't based on how big your paycheck is, it isn't based on what's in the bank. That's not where your security, that's not where your safety, that's not where any of those things come from. You're worthy with those things. You're worthy without those things,
Mhm. Yeah.
And so getting back to that fundamental idea of, wait a minute, there is a purpose behind this. There is a reason behind this. What can I do to live more of that? And that is a daily struggle, I think, for most of us, because it's not the way that the world communicates how you should live. So it's
Mhm.
like all the messages are going counter to that, and so it's kind of countercultural to live in that way.
What final piece of advice would you give to listeners who are seeking to live a more purposeful and authentic life?
So I think a lot of it comes down to that idea of purposeful and intentional. It's
Mhm.
doing the work on yourself to find what is in alignment for you. I think a lot of us get distracted and the messaging is about, worrying what other people are doing, fixing what other people are doing, oh, they're more broken than me, this kind of idea of putting the
Yeah.
message out that somehow or another I'm okay if other folks aren't, it becomes a blame culture in a way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just getting rid of
Yeah.
all of that and spending the energy and the time that we need on us.
Mhm.
And I don't need to worry about what Sheila's doing. I don't need to worry about what anyone else is doing. I need to worry about what I'm doing. And I think it sounds selfish to say that, but it actually ends up being less selfish in a
Yeah.
way. If we work on ourselves and make ourselves better, I think it makes the world a better place.
And I like the term that you use, the blame, the blame culture, because that's what so many people, I can't do this because of that person, or this person is holding
Right.
me back, or that person. And normally it really isn't. It's you. You work on yourself first, and don't worry about what anyone else is doing or what they can do or hold you back. Because no one, if you're really determined or you're a determined person, no one could hold you back. No matter how many no's you get, somewhere you're gonna keep going, going,
Right.
going until you get that yes.
Well,
Right?
and that and absolutely, and I think also, and I'm going to kind of call within Christian circles, this is another trap that we fall into. I think a lot of Christians fall into the trap of wanting to explain to other people why they're doing it wrong, as opposed to working on yourself. you know, and it's and by the way, I'm not even saying they aren't doing it wrong. They may be doing it completely wrong,
Right.
but it's you actually will make more improvement by working on yourself. Because
Mhm.
here's the truth. I can work on Sheila all day long. I can't make Sheila change.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Sheila's got to decide she wants to change before Sheila's
On
going to
our
change.
own. Exactly.
I'm not going to beat
Exactly.
you into it. I'm not going to convince you. I'm not going to yell at you loud enough to make you want to do it. So it's when we recognize that, then we become, it's less worried about what anyone else is doing
Mhm.
and more worried about, yeah, but am I doing the right thing that I'm supposed to be doing? And it just changes the way you look at the world, and it makes it, I spend a lot less time worrying about what other people are doing, and I focus on what I'm doing. And I think that again, I think if more of us did that, the world would be a better place. It'd
Mm,
be less
yeah.
polarized. We'd have less hatred. We'd have less of the isms, all of the isms,
Yes,
that
yes.
we have.
What's next on the horizon for Inspired Stewardship?
So I'm continuing to go out and promote the book. I'm looking for doing some speaking on that as well, and then continuing to coach clients and help different folks. I've worked with clients in 16 countries so far, so I keep a list of every country.
You're
So
busy.
I'm trying to get to about 30 countries. I think that'd be fun. So I'm up to 16, and I think 25 or 26 states. So all over the world and all over the US. So this is one of those things that if you've heard yourself any of this, I'd love to work with you as well and try to help you kind of get unstuck and get moving forward.
Oh, perfect. All right. Good, good. What are you grateful for, Scott?
I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my son. I have a 21-year-old son who's living up in Dallas. He's about 7, 8 hours away from us, and for
Mhm.
some reason he wanted to be closer to his girlfriend than mom and dad. I don't really understand that.
Why would you want
But
that?
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, you know, um, I tease. He's a great young man.
Mhm.
So we have. I'm grateful for those things. I'm grateful for just getting to spend time actually doing and living out the things that I feel are what I'm called to do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
honestly, that's fun. It makes life worth living.
Oh, great, great. If my listeners want to get in touch with you, can you give us your website
Sure.
or information where they can get in touch with
So I
you?
mentioned earlier I'd have a resource page this has everything on it. If you go to inspiredstewardship.com/Sheilas, if you go to inspiredstewardship.com/Sheilas, it has a link to some free resources. It has information about the book. It has a place where if you want to jump on my calendar and have a conversation, be happy to do that. It has some information about my podcast. So basically, all of those resources, I just set them up in one place. So it's easy for your listeners to find if you go to inspiredstewardship.com/Sheilas.
And what is your podcast? Also, let's get your podcast.
Also Inspired Stewardship. So you can find that anywhere great podcasts are found. So
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I thank you, Scott. I thank you so much for stopping by my show and blessing us. Is there anything final, things you would like to say?
I think the only thing I'll share is again kind of the subtitle of the book. The real truth is that I think putting together the puzzle of our life, I use that analogy
Hmm.
because it not only is it putting together a puzzle, but it's putting together a puzzle where the picture on the box keeps changing. And
Yeah.
sometimes the puzzle pieces change too. It's like, hey, wait, somebody else put some puzzle pieces in my puzzle box. What I mean? Where did these pieces come from? So it is that
Yeah.
dynamic process, and just encouraging to people to realize that, you're on a journey. This is about progress. This isn't about being perfect. This is really about being on that journey towards making progress on your life.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. And I appreciate all that you're doing. Please, listeners, please go to stewardship.com/Sheila to get your free resource materials. Check out Scott's Inspired Stewardship podcast and definitely pick up his book, Inspired Living.
Until next time, remember to embrace the journey, build lasting connections, and step boldly into all that life has in store for you. I'm your host, Sheila Dunbar. Blessings to you.